Hello everyone, it's a great pleasure once again to welcome you all to this online learning course. Last class we had a look at an introduction to this course on inferential discrete mathematics. We had a formal introduction to the fundamentals of logic. We discussed the true or false nature of every statement. We understood how to construct a truth table for a simple proposition and how to construct a truth table for a compound proposition. We had an introduction into this idea of a connective which combines two statements and also through a conditional. So either as a connective or a conditional you can combine two statements. We understood how to discuss compound statements using truth tables and also verify the correctness of statements using truth tables. There are a lot of exercise on constructing a truth table for any given compound statement. Further, we also had a look at some equivalence relations. Today we also had a look at how to construct. We also had a look at this idea of a precedence of logical operations in a compound statement. We understood what we mean by a tautology or a contradiction. We classified any given statement, some given statements into tautologies and contradictions. Any compound statement cannot be both of these. We saw that can either be one of these, can also be neither of these. We had a look at all such examples, and then we had a look at the idea of two compound statements being equivalent. We gave a simple example for you to understand. We gave the formal definition as to when we say the two statements are equivalent. We will proceed from the same point. We will once again give you a short recap of what do we mean by equivalence of two statements. Two compound statements are said to be equivalent if their truth tables are identical. So when you have two statements for comparison, you can determine if they are identical by comparing their truth tables. In other words, two statements are equivalent if and only if the columns giving their truth values agree. It must be a 100% match between the two given compound statements. Only then you say that the two statements are equivalent. We will have a look at a few examples today and then move on to this next idea. The first one we have is a compound statement involving three different statements P, Q and R. Let's see how this works. So these are the statements we will have to consider for comparison here. So since there are three statements, we will have 8 different input sequences. We saw a lot of examples for this last class. We will once again have a look at them. Now if you can recall, we found out a very easy way to write all the 8 outcomes. We write for the two statements P and Q first and then make a change in the truth value of R. So now for each of these input sequences, let's compare these 6 columns that we have, 5 columns that we have. So Q and R, it's a conjunction. We have seen what happens when a conjunction happens. It takes a true value only when both involved statements are true. It's false in all other cases, and therefore only rows 2 and 3 return a true value. Next up, we are supposed to compare columns 1 and 4, and we are combining them using a disjunction. How does a disjunction work? the disjunction takes a false value only when both values are false. When you compare columns 1 and 4, you see that both values are false only in rows numbered 4, 6 and 8. So only these rows will have a false value returned, all of the remaining will have a true value, because you can identify that one of the two statements happen to be true. Next is going to be a pretty easy one, a disjunction between the statement P and the statement Q. Easy again. P and Q, when you compare using a disjunction, it will take a false value only when both are false. That happens in row number 4 and also in row number 8. So only these two rows return a false value. The rest of them return a true value always, because one of them is, at least one of them is true. And let's compare columns 1 and 3 now. We're comparing P and R using a disjunction. So a double false happens on two occasions, rows numbered 6 and 8. You have a double false in row number 6 and in row number 8. Every other row is always having at least one entry being true. At least one entry, you remember that. That's how a disjunction works. And now we are supposed to do a conjunction between columns 6 and 7. It's a conjunction. You know how a conjunction works? It takes up a true value only when both are true, and both are true only in rows 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So only these 5 rows will have a true value returned. Only these 5, we just counted them down. The other rows numbered 4. Look at row number 4. It's a combination of a false and a true. That will be false. Row number 6 is a false and a true, and row number 8 is a false and a 2. So all of these will return false values. Now when you compare column 5 and column 8, you will see that they match term by term. Each of the truth values are 100% match. You see 100% match there. They are identical, true across all 8 rows. There is not a single case where they disagree. They agree with each other in all 8 instances of input, and therefore you can say that the statements which represent columns 5 and 8 are equivalent. A simplified form is what you have. We'll have a look at what these simplified forms are a little later. We're going to give them special names, but as of now you can take heart from the statement that we have learned to show how two compound statements can be shown to be equivalent. Let's try one more example, and this time let's deal with something of a advanced type. What we have here is a biconditional. It's not just disjunctions and conjunctions in the statement. You have a biconditional between two statements P and Q. So there is no R, there is no third statement, and hence your input sequence will only contain 2 rows. No, 2 rows in P and 2 rows in Q. It's only 4 rows in all. So P, Q, we have a biconditional between P and Q. We need a negated version of the Q, the negated version of the biconditional of P and Q, and at the last part we also need a biconditional between P and negation Q. So when we complete this truth table across these 6 columns, we'll have easy, we'll have a clear idea as to show whether they are equivalent or not. So let's start again. These are the 4 possible input sequences, or the values that can be assigned to these 2 statements, and column number 3 is a biconditional. We know how a biconditional works, we saw this last class. A biconditional takes a true value only when both are identical. So either both P and Q should be true at the same time or false at the same time. Only then a biconditional takes up a true value. That happens only in row 3 and row 4. Hence rows 1 and 2 will take a false value. Okay. Now column number 4 wants you to negate the statement Q. So you will just flip whatever you have, false becomes true, true becomes false, true becomes false again, and false becomes true. Column 5 wants you to negate column number 3. Once again it is just the flipping of the true values. So false becomes true, true, false, and false. And now the last part, the last column, is about a biconditional which involves the first column and the fourth column. Remember, it's a bicondition between P and the negated version of Q. The same logic holds again. They are true only when they are identical, and you see that they are identical only in the first and second rows. The third and fourth rows, they are different, and hence we will have a true value returned only in the first and second rows. Third and fourth rows will go as false. Now it's moment of truth here. We will find out whether the 2 statements given in the question are actually equivalent, and it turns out to be that they are in fact equivalent. Look at column 5. Column 5 represents the statement on the left of the given statement. Column number 6 represents the statement on the right of the equivalent statement, and you see that there is a 100% match. Every truth value matches with each other, and hence these 2 are equivalent. Now once again shown that they are equivalent. Let's have a look at another example, once again involving biconditionals, because they are fun to do with. Okay, it involves only 2 statements P and Q. So you will require only 4 rows of input sequences. We will require 6 columns, and we will compare the results in columns number 5 and 6. Four rows are here. Column 3 wants you to flip column 1, easy. Column 4 wants you to flip column 2, easy again. Column 5 is a biconditional between the second and third columns. You have to be very careful here. It's a biconditional between the second and third columns, Q and negated P. So you will have a true value returned only in the first couple of rows, because they are 100% match only then. They are together false, or they are together true only in 2 rows. Columns 3 and 4, they are different, and hence they won't return a true value. Now what about column 6? Column 6 wants you to compare columns 1 and 4. Column 1 and column 4, P and the negated version of Q. Now when are they true together? They are true together once again in the first row and the second row, and only in these 2 rows. Look at rows 3 and 4, they are not, and hence the truth value returned will be false. Now it's once again obvious that the comparison that we have made is across columns 5 and 6, and there is a 100% match in the truth value of these 2 columns, and therefore you see that they are equivalent. Once again verified the 2 given statements are equivalent. Okay, this is interesting. We have a different connective here. We are connecting P and Q using an exclusive OR. I hope you remember how an exclusive OR works. It's the opposite of your disjunction, where we make a small correction to the definition of the OR statement. We will see that. We have only two statements considered, so there are only 4 input sequences. We need an exclusive OR, and we are also supposed to negate the exclusive OR, flip the answer, and we also have to construct a biconditional involving P and Q. The input sequences can be filled up. You must be very comfortable with them by now. We have drawn like 20 to 25 truth tables so far, so you must be feeling pretty confident about how to write these 4 or 8 rows. Okay, now let's recall how an exclusive OR works. An exclusive OR, if you can focus here, we'll compare the disjunction. A disjunction works like this. It returns a false value only when both are false. But an exclusive OR returns a true value only when exactly one of them is true. If both are true, it still is false. If both are false, it still is false. So that's how an exclusive OR works, and that's what we'll have here. Only when exactly one of them is true, you return a true value. So only rows 1 and 2 are true, 3 and 4 will be deemed false. And column 4 wants you to negate column 3. So we'll just flip the answers. Easy. Column 6 is a column 5 is a biconditional between columns 1 and 2. You have understood how a biconditional works. It takes a true value only when the answers are identical. That happens in the 3rd and the 4th rows. Therefore, the first 2 rows are false. Now, when you compare columns 4 and 5, you see that they are a 100% match between them, and hence they are equivalent. One last problem, I guess. Yes, we'll have one last problem on proving equivalence relations, and then move ahead. We are once again considering only 2 statements P and Q, a biconditional between them, the negation of the biconditional, and a biconditional between the negated version of one of them. This must be too easy for you by now. We'll quickly go to the next concept. Biconditional, so only rows 3 and 4 are true, rows 1 and 2 are false. You negate them, so you flip the answers. Next, you flip the answers of P, and then you do a biconditional between columns 2 and 5. 2 and 5 are identical only in row number 1 and row number 2. Hence, it's a true value only in the first 2 rows. It's a false value in the remaining. Now you look at columns 4 and 6. You see that they are completely identical, and hence they are also equivalent. So this exercise helps you understand how to show that a couple of compound statements can be shown to be equivalent, even though they have different notations, different connectives involved in their definitions. They give the same set of output values, and this can be shown using a simple construction of a truth table, or you can also be asked to verify whether they are equivalent. So once again, you will compare their truth tables and find if they have a 100% match. What we have next is a set of properties. Now, so far we have proved a lot of equivalence relations using this idea of a truth table, but there are some equivalence relations which are the fundamentals behind Boolean logic. You don't have to prove these again and again. You can refer to them by their names. We will give a name for each of these statements that we will see next, and when you are supposed to solve problems you can call them or you can use them by their reference names. You do not have to show that they are equivalent every single time that you are solving it. The first of them is this. This is what you call as the identity law. It is the identity law because a statement combined with another statement gives the statement back. So you combine P and true and get P back. That is what you refer to as the identity statement. I will explain a few of them for you here, the rest I will leave to you to verify by yourselves. So what we are comparing is any statement P which will have only two outcomes and an absolutely true statement which is always true, and you are supposed to do a conjunction between the two. So true and true gives you true, true and false gives you false. Now if you see this, you can see that columns 1 and 3 are similar, they are identical, and hence they are equivalent. Similarly, if you consider F a statement that is always false and you do a disjunction of any given statement with the completely false statement, you are comparing columns 1 and 4, you will see that they match. Columns 1 and 5 match, and hence they are equivalent. This is what you call as the identity law. There are 8 or 9 laws like these. We will have a look at them one by one. I will not prove all of them, but this is how you can prove them by yourselves. The next is what you call as the dominant law. Some textbooks refer to this as the domination law, but the essence is this: the true statement always dominates any given statement when it is a disjunction, and a false statement always dominates any given statement if it is a conjunction. So this is what you call as a domination law. This is pretty similar to the previous law that we discussed, but the difference is the statement is not returned. You do a disjunction with a true statement, but the absolutely true statement is what is being returned. This is what you call as a dominant law or the domination law. The true statement dominates any given statement in a disjunction, and a false statement dominates any given statement in a conjunction. Yes. This next law is what you call as the idempotent law. This is pretty easy. You do a connective between a statement and itself, whatever be the connective, you get it back. Be it a disjunction or a conjunction, you have the same statement combined with itself, you will get the same statement back. Verifying this is very elementary. I will leave it to you as an exercise, not very difficult though. And this is called the double negation law. The double negation law. So you find the negated version of the negated version of any statement P. So you have, let's check this out, I will explain this. You have P, you have the negated version of P, and you have the negated version of the negated version. So true false becomes false true when you negate, and false true becomes true false again when you negate the second column. And now when you compare the columns 1 and column 3, you see that they match, there is a 100% match. This is called a double negation. So you negate any statement twice over, you will get it back. Okay, now this is what you call as the commutative law. It is pretty easy. The commutative law will be used across many topics. It just says the order in which you perform an operation does not impact the answer. So here you see that we are doing a disjunction in two different orders. P comes first, Q comes next, you perform a disjunction. Q comes first, P comes next, you still perform the same disjunction, and that means it does not affect the answer. The way in which you compare the two statements does not affect the answer. That is why you call as a commutative law, and this is not only for disjunctions, it can also be extended to conjunctions. You perform a conjunction between two statements in whatever order, the end sequence will be the same. But this works only for disjunctions and conjunctions. We have already seen that it does not work for a conditional statement. You will never see this happening. A conditional, you cannot just flip it, you cannot just reverse the order in which you perform and say that they are equivalent. They are not equivalent. We have already seen the examples of this in the previous class. Okay, this is what we just verified a couple of slides back, where you do the same operation across three different statements. There are three statements P, Q and R, and in each case you are combining them only using the same connective. Then the order in which you perform the operations will not affect the answer. I am not saying you are flipping the order, you are not changing the order, but you combine a different set of statements and then proceed with the final result. In that case, the answers do not change. This can also be extended to the conjunction between two statements. We are combining three statements in all, and it's combined, P and Q is combined first and the result is combined with R. In other words, you do the combination of the first two followed by the third. That is what happens on the left. On the right, you combine the last two and then you go for the first. Still the answers do not change. This is what you refer to as the associative law. Fine. What happens if the operations are different? Now in the last slide we saw that it was uniformly the same operation. It was a disjunction everywhere, and hence it does not matter. What if the operations are different? What if you have three statements, but there is a disjunction in one case and a conjunction in another? Then you cannot just rearrange the brackets and evaluate the expression. It happens like this. We verified this law slightly before, a couple of slides before. This law is what you call as the distributive law. In other words, you are distributing this disjunction across the conjunction. So first with Q, then with R, and then you are performing a conjunction between them. Likewise, you are distributing the conjunction over this disjunction. So you first perform the conjunctions and then you have a disjunction between them. This can also be verified to be a perfect example of a couple of compound statements that are equivalent, and this is quite familiar to people who have learned the idea behind set theory. This is what you refer to as the De Morgan's laws. In elementary set theory there are a couple of laws known as De Morgan's laws, and what we understand is the same kind of a understanding you can extend also to the idea of logics. Now let us verify this. This is pretty fun to verify. We will do this. We have P, we have Q, we have a conjunction between P and Q and a negation of the conjunction. We have negated P, we have negated Q, we have a disjunction between the two negated versions. We are trying to say columns 4 and 7 are equivalent, or in other words we must get a 100% match between the two. Let us check this out. it's a conjunction between P and Q. You know how that works. Only one of them is true, all the others are false. You're looking forward to flip them, so true, true, the last case is a false, and then you have a true again. Now you are flipping P, so false, true, false, true, true, false, false, true. And now you are looking for a conjunction between, no, it's a disjunction between columns 5 and 6. It's a true again, false again, and a true again. This clearly indicates that the statements represented by columns 4 and 7 are equivalent because their columns are a 100% match. They are 100% match. In the similar way, you can also try and verify the second statement below. I'll leave that to you as an exercise. It's not much difficult. Okay. This next is what you call as an absorption law. When you have a statement which is disjuncted with the conjunction, or a conjunction, or in a conjunction with the disjunction, then the statement comes back. I'll verify one of these. So P, Q, P conjunction Q, P disjunction with P conjunction Q. Let's see how this works. True, false, false, true, 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 false, false. It's a conjunction, only one value is true and the others are false. A disjunction with the conjunction, you're combining 1 and 3 with a disjunction. So it's true, false, true, false again. Now it is not surprising to see that we have a perfect match between columns 1 and 4, and hence the statements represented by columns 1 and 4 are equivalent. You can try and also verify the second statement given here. I'll leave it as an exercise. And these are what you call as the complement laws. They are complement laws. What happens if you combine a statement and its complement? Complement as in its negated version. So what we are doing is, you have P, you have the negated version of P, and you are doing a disjunction between the two, you are doing a conjunction between the two. Let's have a look at what happens. True and false, only a couple of rows, false and true. A disjunction, you will get back true. So it's always true. The disjunction between a statement and its negated version is always true. That's what the first statement says. The second one, you do a conjunction between columns 1 and 2, and it's always false. So it says that it is always a false. So both are established equivalent statements between two compound statements. And this image on your screen lists all of these with their names: identity law, domination law, idempotent laws, double negation or a double complement, whichever way you like it, commutative law, associative law, distributive laws, De Morgan's laws, absorption law, and negation law. You can also call this as a complement law. The reason why we learn so many equivalent statements is that, first of all, they are elementary. Verification doesn't take long. And second, later when we are trying to solve problems in theory of inference, we will quote these laws. So you don't have to every time prove these equivalent statements every time when you are solving problems under the theory of inference. You can just quote these laws and then use them as and when you wish to use them in the proofs. And this is one more set of equivalent statements, but this time we are not talking only about statements and their complements. We are also involving the conditional statements. We looked at what conditional statements are in the previous class. Now there are certain properties which can be like applied to show that a couple of conditional statements are equivalent, or a statement which is conditional and a statement which represents a connective are also equivalent. So this table here lists 9 different equivalent statements involving conditional statements. We have verified one of these before. If you can recall, the second statement here is between a conditional and its contrapositive. If you remember, last class we introduced a conditional and 3 different versions of the same. We introduced a conditional and its converse, a conditional and its inverse, and a conditional and its contrapositive. Among these 3 combinations, only the last combination was a 100% match. So any conditional, if this is a conditional, this is its contrapositive. They are always equivalent. And you can also extend the same to biconditional statements. In the last slide we had a look at only conditional statements. It was a one-way conditional statement. What if we had a two-way conditional statement? There are also instances of biconditional statements being equivalent to something else, and this table lists 4 important equivalences involving biconditional statements. Now we will verify a few of them just so that you understand what is happening and the significance. These are not just examples to show that they are equivalent. There is significance behind achieving this equivalence. I have just handpicked a couple of them. I am not going to prove all of them, that is a waste of time, because you are familiar with this verification, and whenever you feel like, you can always use the truth table technique and verify these for yourselves. So I am not going to establish the correctness of all of them, only a selected few, 3, 4, 5, only 5. That will be it. Only 5 conditional statements and equivalences involving them. We will have a look at these. So the compound statement involves only P and Q. So there are only 4 rows in our truth table. You know how a conditional works? It's false in only one occasion and true in all other cases. It's false only when the hypothesis is true and the consequence is false. That's the first row. In all other cases, a conditional assumes a true value. Column 4 wants you to negate column 1. So we'll just flip the answers. And column 5 wants you to do a disjunction between columns 2 and 4. You know how a disjunction works? It takes up a false value only when both are false, and that happens only in the first row. Everywhere else it's a true. Now you will see that columns 3 and 5 are identical, and therefore their corresponding statements are equivalent. Now we are not just showing 2 random statements to be equivalent. What happens here is that a conditional is being replaced by a disjunction. This is important. The statement on the left is a conditional statement, the one on the right is a disjunction. We are trying to show that not just conditionals are equivalent, a conditional and a disjunction can also be proved to be equivalent. This will come to our help when we are establishing certain results in the theory of inference, and we will appreciate this better as and when we get there. And here, just like the previous one, we are showing equivalence between a conditional and a conjunction. It is not between 2 conditionals, we have already seen that. This talks about a conditional, the negated version of the conditional, and a plain conjunction. Once again, it involves only 2 statements. So you will have only 4 rows in all, and just like the previous slide, a conditional admits only one false value, therefore its negated version will admit only one true value. Column 5 wants you to negate column 2, and column 6 wants you to do a conjunction between columns 1 and column 5. A conjunction, you know how a conjunction works, it's true only when both are true and false in all other cases. Now you will see that columns 4 and 6 are identical, and hence their statements are equivalent. We have shown that once again a conditional can also be written in the form of a conjunction, not another conditional, not another disjunction, but a conjunction. This is interesting. We'll need more rows this time. We are combining 3 statements. What if you combine 2 conditional statements? This is a conditional in P and R, this is a conditional in Q and R. We are doing a disjunction between the two. This is going to be interesting. You have a P, you have a Q, you have an R, a conditional from P and R, Q and R, and a conjunction of P and Q, and another conjunction from there, and you will have a disjunction of a couple of columns. We will have to write down 8 rows this time. So let us recall once again how to write them down. We will proceed as if we are doing only 4 rows and copy the same for different values of R. Now conditional from P to R. Listen very carefully. A conditional from P to R takes a false value only when the hypothesis P is true and the consequence R is false, and that happens in 2 places. Am I right? Where are those? 1 in the 5th row and 1 in the 7th row. Only these 2 statements, these 2 input sequences are false. It's true everywhere else. So 6 of them are true, a couple of them are false. Okay. Now Q and R. Look at Q and R. Conditional again involving Q and R. That conditional will take up a false value only when Q is false, when Q is true but R is false. That also happens only in 2 places. Rows numbered 6 and 7. Only in these 2 cases it's a false. In all other cases you will have a true. Okay. The next is easy. It's a conditional between columns 1 and 2. So it's a false, false, true, false, 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 true, and false. And now a conditional between columns 6 and 3. It's a conditional, so it will take a false value only when P and Q is true but R is false. Where is that? R is false but P and Q is true. I think that happens only once. P and Q is true but R is false. This one, look at this. Column 7. That's a false statement. P and Q is true but R is false. Do we have any other instance of the same? False, false, true, false, 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 false. Yes. We don't seem to have any other instance. So all the remaining 7 values are true. Now in the last case, the last column, we do a disjunction between columns 4 and 5. A disjunction, it takes a false value only when both are false. That happens only in the 7th row. So every other row takes up a true value, every other row takes up a true value. And now what are we comparing? We are comparing columns 3, 6, 7, 7 and 8. Look at them, they are 100% match, and hence when you combine two conditionals you still get another conditional, except the order of the connective is reversed. Just a couple of more examples, easier ones this time because we are combining only a couple of statements. So P, Q, a biconditional, a conjunction, negation of the two. I need more space. P, Q, biconditional, a conjunction, negation of P, negation of Q, conjunction again, and then another disjunction. The bright side is you will have only 4 rows to deal with, so it won't take much long to complete this verification. Only these two are true because that's a biconditional. The next one is a conjunction, so only one of them is true, all the remaining. You will flip column 1, you will flip column 2, you will do a conjunction between the two, and then you will do a conjunction between columns 4 and 7, conjunction between columns 4 and 7. So it's a conjunction, so only one of them is true. Where do we stand? It's a disjunction between columns 4 and 7, I am sorry. So they are false only when both are false, and both of them are false in rows 1 and 2, columns 4 and 7, and in rows number 3 and 4 at least one of them is true, and therefore they return a true value. Now look at column 4 and column 8, they are 100% match, and hence they are equivalent. And this last thing, P, Q, P conjunction Q, a biconditional here, P and Q, one more biconditional. We will verify this. Only 4 rows, the last two are true. We have seen more of these. We will flip P, false, true, false, true. We will flip Q, true, false, false, true, and a biconditional between columns 4 and 5. Only the last two are true, remaining are false. Now compare columns 3 and 6. You will see that there is a 100% match, and hence you have one more equivalence. So in today's class we have looked at how to show any two compound propositions are equivalent. We had a look at a list of 9, 4 and 7, like 13 important fundamental equivalence statements between any two statements. We have listed them down in 2 separate images, one image for any two statements, one image for conditional statements, and one image for biconditional statements. And we have also verified a selected hand-picked set of statements which are compounded. So these properties will be used when we take up validating certain statements and arriving at certain statements as conclusions in theory of inference. So we have verified them now, so you don't have to worry whether they are right or wrong, and I have left a couple of them for you to solve them on your own as an exercise. So all in all, we have learned how two compound statements can be equivalent and how to verify the same. In the next class we will understand how to use these and the concept called the theory of inference, where we arrive at a conclusion based on certain statements. Thank you.